Tonight, the night of nights. I know what heights will hit. Is the sound tonight, working? The night of nights. Yep. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA, searching the world for marketing news for you today. Okay, let's get over to Tom Fishburne, Generation Alpha, which is the new designation for kids born lately. There's still another year to go, I think. But the earliest ones, I think, is 2012, would now be 10 years old or something. So they're just about to be teenagers. And so the market research guy says it looks like we have work to do to appeal to a younger generation. Early sentiment analysis describes our brand as a big dummy poo-poo head, which I'm guessing is a negative sentiment, although I'm not 100% sure. And young kids tend to string stuff together, and you're not always sure. Sometimes they just latch onto an expression, even if it's very bad, and they go with it, which is kind of funny. Anyway, kids are funny. Here's the little kid, and whatever the brand is there. So Nike CEO John Donahue recently gushed, I like that word, gushed, about Generation Alpha, the under 12 demographic that comes after Gen Z. The way most companies look at consumers is, well, who's got disposable income? What an idea. If you're selling Bentleys, you need to find somebody with a lot of disposable income, right? If you're selling bicycles, not so much. But, so we don't look at it that way here at Nike. We look at who's setting the agenda, who is the future. And I'll tell you, no 10-year-old in our family set the agenda. But I can see why Nike might think so because, I got my first pair of tennis shoes at about 10 years old. I wasn't able to get them as soon as everyone else in my class. I went from corrective shoes for my fallen arches. Does anybody have fallen arches today? Everybody, or a lot of people seem to. Anyway, I had these fallen arches. I don't know what that meant, but it meant I couldn't get tennis shoes. And then I went from that to Buster Brown's. I went from the really orthopedic shoes to Buster Brown's, which were brown and they look like Alan Edmonds for kids or something. And, not the greatest for baseball. Then I got, actually, I think my first pair of tennis shoes were topsiders, were legit topsiders, because by then I was taking sailing school classes. So anyway, I was not oppressed. I was privileged, I know. So if you weren't in sailing school when you were 10, then you weren't privileged. Excuse me. Maybe, hopefully you had other opportunities along in life. Many marketers are starting to jump on the Gen Alpha bandwagon, okay? Named in 2009 by McCriddle Research, the generation born between 2010 and 2025. As the oldest generation Alpha approaches teenage years, marketers far beyond Nike are ramping up their focus on understanding the tastes and habits of this shiniest new generation. They eat what we tell them to eat. It's in my house. Not anymore. Marketers, but my daughter is, even funnier about that than we were. I mean, her kids were eating some kind of spicy pasta dish, and they were just shoveling it right in, 3 years and 1 year old. Okay, so are they alpha? Yeah, they're alpha. They're both alpha. I'll have to tell my daughter that she's got to pay attention to the habits and tastes of the shiniest new generation. Marketers are often always guilty of treating generations as monoliths and describing Gen Alpha. And descriptions of Gen Alpha are filled with hyperbole. It will be the most influential, most authentic. Now, this is, I think, is funny. What in the world does that mean when, all of your opinions are fed to you via the internet? And the most digital savvy, and I doubt that. When I started building websites, I did it with code. You had to code your website. You write the code and you tell it some number for the background color and some number of pixels for the dimensions, and then you upload it and see what it looks like. And that's how you did it. With Chameleon, I think, was my first browser editor. I know way more about HTML than most of the people who build WordPress sites. I'm sure of it. So it doesn't, in the 1940s when you bought a car, it came with a manual on how to hone your cylinders and change your rings. Does anybody do that now? No. So it doesn't necessarily. Anyway, that's just bunk. So contrary to John Donahue's claims, marketers often don't pay attention to the consumers who actually have. Actually, it's not contrary, Tom. It's in agreements with John Donahue's claim. They go after the shiny object and they don't pay attention to the consumers who actually have disposable income. Going along with John. Anyway, one study found that consumers over 55 have 70% of the U.S. disposable income, yet only 5% of advertising spend is geared toward this age group. And mostly it's like nursing home insurance and annuities, right? As Ryan Wallman quipped, and I had to look him up, creative director and head of copy at Wellmark Pty Limited. I think it's like an ad agency. Marketers will continue to ignore all consumers over the age of 35 unless someone discovers a way to put these consumers on the blockchain, which they probably already are. Too much of generational marketing is herd effect. Genuine consumer insights run deeper than age brackets. And so here's a couple. I may be a YouTube star, but are you sure I'm a good fit to promote your mortgage business? I'm only 12. Just do something millennial. Here. What do we know about Gen Z so we can get them to buy stuff? So far, all we know is that they hate brands that try to get them to buy stuff, and I like that one. Okay. Amazon in Illinois has to face privacy claims over Ring doorbells. Now, what's happened here? I'm going to summarize this very quickly because it's 4 minutes long. But the Ring doorbell has a camera in it, right? And so theoretically, it could biometrically scan an image and connected to the internet. I mean, you can go on and say, who's at my door? You get an alert, your doorbell's ringing on your phone. Who's at the door? And it's the guy in the UPS uniform or something. So then you can unlock the door or you can talk to him, stuff. That's the way. I don't have one of these. I don't really want one. Nobody comes to my door. The package guys know to just throw it on the porch from a distance. But Amazon has also I think they bought a facial recognition company and they've filed patents saying, well, if there's a camera that's hooked to the internet, we could conceivably, and so they filed a patent to keep other people from doing, essentially to keep them from doing this very thing. So now they're being sued because according to Amazon, these things don't look up anybody. They can't do it. They're not good enough at it. But someday they could, and they want to have the patent for it when it happens. They've thought it up, which is most of what an invention is, and now they just want to hold that place open. And so because of that, now the judge says, well, you say it can't do facial recognition, but you also went to the trouble of filing a patent. So anyway, it's kind of a catch-22 type deal. Okay, direct marketer strategies and this is funny as it happens because Fishburne comes out with this, you might want to give up on this, here's all of what the millennials need and here's what the Gen Zs need. I thought this was interesting from Joy Genduza. I've sent Joy about a dozen connect notices or invitations, and I'll send her another one, but she never does. So if you know Joy, you might want to say, hey, John keeps talking about you. She writes good articles, although this one was way long. But she says, mail is growing, and Postcard Mania, she puts in a commercial for her own thing. This is in entrepreneur.com, okay? Their net earnings jumped 30% in 2021, and because digital ad prices are going up, overwhelmed with the number of ads on their screen, third-party cookies, ad blockers, opt out of emails. So direct mail is the perfect avenue for directly talking to your customers, okay? And it's the best kept secret. So what do? Baby boomers require clarity and value. And there was, there's a lot of value in this article is what I'm basically trying to say. And so first off, she talks about vision. And she talks about how you might need glasses. I did an analysis of ads for the Billy Graham Crusade, the Billy Graham Association, for their annuity program. And what we found was if the type got to 8 point, that's very small. If the type, that readership was pretty okay if it was bigger than 8. But when it got to 8 or below, if they ever did that, the body copy, the number of leads generated went to like 0. It went and then off a cliff. It wasn't like a little slope with the size of the type. So you can completely destroy your effectiveness by making the type too small. And I do like fonts like for body copy, like Times New Roman, because it has serifs. Those are the little footies on the font. And which reminds me, Arial and Helvetica went into a bar. The bartender looked him over and said, "We don't serve your type here." Anyway, if you're into graphic design, you might laugh. I hope you smirk a little on that one. That was from a comedian. I can't remember his name right now, but I'll tag him in here. He's got a lot of tech jokes and a lot of font jokes, which I think is really odd. But anyway, we're connected, unlike Joy. So anyway, you might want to put in a map. This was an excellent idea, and I'm working with a local retailer in Chicago, and I bet they've never put a map in their ads, because everybody knows where they are. They've been there 40 years. Let's put a map in there. Let's test it. One of the things about mail that Joy does not mention really is testing, and she has a couple of case studies, and like all their case studies, they really aren't well tested, or at least it's not documented that there's any tests whatsoever. Just here's what they did, and here's the result. That is not a test. That is a try. Okay, so 68% of boomers said that the most effective element in direct mail was locally owned. And I've shared that with you a couple of times when I see some like Exterminator or Lawn Care or something, and I say, well, is this some? And I was on Facebook, and we had a power outage for 14 hours, and I've been thinking about a generator, but one of the neighbors said, well, I got a solar array, and they just built a new house, and we didn't even notice the power was out because it keeps our refrigerator going and our AC going, and we have big batteries, and so it was ducky. So I'm thinking of that. So I was on Facebook, and I saw an ad for some solar thing, and it looked like it was local, but it turned out it was an Illinois company, and so I'm not going to follow up. And instantly, Facebook hit me with 5 solar ads, and not one has sent me a piece of mail, not one has followed up, including the one I actually gave my physical address to, did not send me a piece of mail. They gave me some kind of little quote that said I could save money in the long run by putting up solar, but that wasn't enough for me. And so put the map in there. That was excellent. Boomers think mail is more personal. And then here's a case study. This RV repair place mails out 2,000 postcards a month, every month for 5 years. And he went from averaging 4 to 5 jobs a week to over 25, and calculates that every time he mails 5,000 cards, he generates 150,000 in revenue. So, and is that incremental? Does he do holdout tests? We'll never know. Okay, Gen X, a mix of digital and print, because they grew up in the, by the time they were in high school, they might have gotten connected to the internet, something like that, because it's about 95. So they'd be 30s. Yeah, okay. So yeah, 95, they could be 30, or they'd be in their 20s. So they would get some, as soon as it came on, they would probably get some exposure to it. Incorporate digital elements in your direct mail campaign like QR codes. Why wouldn't you do that for the boomers? Because we're not probably going to scan it with our phones, because my kids love visiting websites with their phones. I, I just, maybe my fingers are too big. I don't know. But anyway, so the Gen X's are really into blended. So make sure you include that and give them a deal. They like that. And the boomers like it, but they have all the disposable income in the world, so they don't need it. Um, Also, 70% of shopping carts are abandoned. That happens to me a lot. So you might want to try direct mail retargeting. If you're a .com and you're not doing direct mail retargeting, you're really missing out. And um, it is something that can be highly automated. And well, we'll get to that in the next one. Millennials are impressed by unique, tech-savvy marketing. What's really funny is that I was working with a catalog company just a year or two ago, and the president called me up, and she was, I would say, in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, and she said, "Did I just got a postcard in the mail from, I don't know what, Bed Bath and Beyond or something, some big retailer, home related retailer." She said, "Where'd they get my address?" I said, "Did you visit their site?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, they got it by matching your browser and your home and mailing you." She said, "Really? You can do that?" I said, "Yeah, you really can." So millennials are impressed with that sort of thing. I don't know that she was a millennial. Probably she was Gen Z. Anyway, they also like personalization. Jackie, take some time for yourself. And of course, with a digital printer, you can put that in. Like here I have a postcard. You can't read it, but it says at the bottom, "Promote Miglash Marketing Inc. today. Stand out." But it's got my business name right there. So that got my attention a little bit. And, that would have been incredibly difficult to do with an old offset printer, but not anymore. A study done by the Rochester Institute of Technology, where everybody learned to run big web presses, said that a recipient's name as personalization improved the response rate by 135%. That's a lot. That's more than double. But again, test it. It may not work for you, but you should give it a test. There should be a list an arm's length long of things that you're thinking about testing. And that's part of what we give you here. But if you don't test it, just do it. You'll never know the incremental value of it. Okay, invest in a creative mail piece that breaks the mold. And so larger size, this one's 5.5 by 12.5 or something like that. Or 6.5 by 12.5, something. It's big. Yeah, probably 6 by 11. That's probably what it is right there. Which is a little more expensive, but really, really stands out. But the problem is that when I get it in the mail, it's folded in half, kind of haphazardly by the post office. So it kind of wrecks some of the effect. Okay, coordinate direct mail with digital ads. You can do that. You can upload your mailing list to Facebook and Google Ad Network, and you can actually trigger the ad to appear when the piece is in the mail. And finally, Gen Z, they didn't mention Alpha. Gen Alpha pays attention to reviews and retargeted mail after they surf the web. So again, now all of these can be tested with all the groups, and too often people rely on geodemographic lists instead of interest lists. So I did work with the Windham Hill Records back in the, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, probably early 2000s. And they were buying, they said, we've done studies like Fishburne was showing at the beginning. And they said, our buyers our music buyers are mostly men, 35 to 55, high income, high education. Okay, disposable income. They said, but when we rent those kind of lists, we get no response. And it turns out there's 14 million of those kind of names in America. You can just take them all. But they only sold about 4 million CDs a year. So obviously not all of those are their customers. And anybody with a little common sense knows that that's not the only kind of customer they have. So neither of those are true. I said, well, why don't you put a little card in your CD case saying we have a free catalog? And in 6 months, that generated 600,000 new names. So they didn't have to rent any after that. And and when we mailed those, that generated 90,000 new buyers. And so they were able to completely blow their valuation out of the water and sell out to BMG for, I think, 17 million. Or yeah, BMG is that? Anyway, one of the world's largest record companies. They sold out like instantly, And I got a thank you note or something. So anyway, sometimes the geodemographics are not the way to go. Villian Callis Pediatric Dentistry rented 24,000 and did kid-friendly postcards, and they gained 90 new patients and made about $36,000. Okay, and at $1 a piece, they spent 24,000 to make 36,000, and so probably it wasn't break even if this is gross sales, but maybe they got some long-lasting customers out of that. There's always more to it, and unless you test it properly, unless you set it up, unless you get to the right numbers and look at the incremental value, you don't know if you're making money. That's the way we learned it back in the old days when we had to make money in mail. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart. Share. Oh, and note down below the little scrolly thing. I'm going to be doing a webinar that's ticket only. It's not going to be everybody. You got to sign up and you got to come. To Spinning Straw into Gold, I'm going to be sharing some of the new elements of my newest edition that I'm working on right now. And you'll also be part of a group that will get to see the pre-release new chapters so that you can comment and let me know if I've lost my mind. So be sure to share this so your friends